when you look at the Sri Lanka situation, I think Sri Lanka is kind of a case study that is all kind of a new game here, and how to deal with different creditors, new creditors emerging, and a traditional press club-led process is also there. And also like market access, commercial creditors having huge exposure of Sri Lanka. Those are different situations. I think this is where I think going forward, IMF needs to basically play a very important role in this kind of situations. And we would certainly welcome their lot of work, and we need that based on our experiences, IMF need to improve their frameworks and also the solutions, and need to be a little bit pragmatic and flexibility. Looking at countries' situation, it's not like that straight jacket fitting every country.
One important area that the IMF needs to rethink, I think, its role and adapt to a much more complex creditor environment. It's on sovereign debt restructuring, and particularly for middle income, but also for lower income countries. One of the things I think is that the process takes too long because the financing assurance and lending into arrears policy, it's a fairly complex subject. Basically, it's a complex creditor landscape, as the governor was saying, and the IMF policies need to adapt. In particular, while every single argument that for the existing policy or some small variation of it makes sense in a sort of a particular bureaucratic bubble, the fact of the matter is that the process takes way too long. It took Sri Lanka a year to get to the board, and the IMF needs to balance the debtor's needs. But I don't mean just giving money with low conditionality or anything like that. What I mean is the need to respond fast. For Sri Lanka, it was very acute the first several months. The IMF really needs to put the debtor at the center of this and kind of not be afraid to use the policy tool it already has. I would say the board has a conflict of interest on this one because they both represent creditors and they're supposed to do what's good for the IMF membership, which includes the debtors. So this is an area where I think there's a real need to put the needs of the debtor country first so that the IMF can truly be what it is, which is a lender of last resort.
When COVID started, I think the IMF actually very well displayed its strengths. Its strengths of moving quickly when countries need liquidity. February 2020, COVID broke out. April 2020, the IMF have moved already to disburse $1.4 billion to Pakistan in the form of the Rapid Support Instrument. And that was not just Pakistan. There were many, many other countries where the IMF used its tools very, very quickly to provide liquidity. RSI was a big success. Then was the DSSI initiative, which was G20. The IMF played a key role and again provided liquidity support in the form of NPV neutral extensions, essentially, of the obligations that were coming due. My second point is the corollary to that point, that when I see how the IMF has moved in sovereign debt restructuring cases or cases where there may be a debt overhang and not necessarily a debt restructuring, I would very much want the IMF to show the same speed as it did in the RSI and the DSSI. For some reason, that speed the IMF has not been able to demonstrate. Many of the tools exist for the IMF to be able to move forward, even when some creditors may not be participating as well as one would wish. So my overall point is basically for the IMF in those cases of sovereign debt distress or debt overhang, or where actually there is debt restructuring, to be able to show the same speed that the IMF demonstrated when it came to the RSI and when it came to the DSSI.